This is Sounds Like a Cult, a show about the modern day cults we all follow.
I'm Isa Medina, and I'm a comedian.
I'm Amanda Montell, author of the book Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism.
Every week here on our show, we discuss a different fanatical fringe group from the cultural zeitgeist, from Peloton to theater kids, to try and answer the big question.
This group sounds like a cult, but is it really? To join our cult, follow us on Instagram at Sounds Like a Cult Pod.
I'm on IG at Isa Medina, ISAAMEDINAA.
And I'm on IG at Amanda_Montell. And for bonus materials, juicy cult discussions, and more, feel free to hit us up on Patreon at patreon.com/soundslikeacult. Well, this is a coincidence. Our sponsor today is actually a vegan ready-made meal delivery brand, Daily Harvest.
I didn't even know they were vegan because the food looked so good.
It is so good. Even if you aren't vegan, though, you can still customize any of their dishes, from their sweet potato and rice hash to their famous smoothies and flatbreads. You can even add meat if you must.
I would not add meat to their smoothies, but I would recommend them. Everything I've tried so far is delicious and so easy to make. Go to dailyharvest.com/cult to get up to $40 off your first box.
That's dailyharvest.com/cult for up to $40 off your first box.
Now let's get right to this week's delicious little topic.
I am terrified to do this topic, which I think means we need to do it.
Yes. And do you think you're terrified because you are this topic?
I used to be, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the cult of veganism this week.
Yes.
Controversial because food and diet are always a contentious subject. You know, food is not just nutrition, it's family, it's culture, it's socioeconomic status, it's identity. And veganism has historically had this reputation of making people feel like really attacked about the way that they consume food. And no one wants to feel like a bad person. But at the same time, I don't think veganism is culty for the reason that meat eaters think it is.
Yeah, I feel like it's also this like idea of exclusivity and like us versus them, very much so. I think we're going to talk about how it's culty in different ways. It's almost like meat eaters are kind of what make it culty.
That's actually a great point. I mean, I think that outsiders, as we'll call them, meat eaters, non-vegans, tend to think that vegans are culty because they talk about it nonstop. It's like, how do you know that someone is vegan? They will tell you about it. But literally no one talks more or more passionately about food than people who are super into meat. Like, think about barbecue culture with the fucking pig on a spit and the chest beating.
I thought you were going to say then people who are hungry. And I was going to be like, yes, that's me.
The cult of hanger.
Oh my God, I'm a hangry person.
Oh, I am an evil cult leader who would exploit anyone when I'm hungry.
Yeah. Anyone who knows me knows that I like need to be fed a snack like every 2 hours or else I will explode.
They have good snacks here at All Things Comedy.
Yeah, they do. Really
Love
good.
the pretzels. But yeah, I find that meat eaters can be just as fanatical as vegans. It's just that we don't notice it or think of it as culty because it's mainstream. It's the default. Meat eating is the default.
Yeah, it is. It's like when you go to a restaurant with a friend who happens to be vegan, it only comes up because the menu is mostly default non-vegan or meat adjacent.
And
I don't know.
Even if the meat eaters are being respectful, they're the ones who are often calling attention to it. You know, like, is there something you can eat? Oh, are you... That I think has cheese on it.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of vegans that I know don't really like identify really with the word vegan anymore because it's so strict and they don't want to be called out by meat eaters. And I'm going to say this a lot today, but like I am one of those people who like I call out vegans a lot because like I feel insecure that I'm not a vegan because like for environmental purposes, it's like love animals, but that is not why I would go vegan if I did. For me, it's like truly the environment that gives me a lot of anxiety. And so like I feel like meat eaters call out vegans because they feel insecure that they're not doing enough.
100%. And vegans know that. And I think that's one of the reasons why they sometimes come across as radical, because it is hard to be vegan. Like, most of our culture is still not set up for veganism being easy. So you have to kind of be evangelical about it sometimes to keep yourself motivated to do it. And like, I personally do believe in going vegan for the planet.
Going clear.
No, going vegan for the planet and the animals, and like not so much for your health because I was like completely junk food vegan. But I also think that if the goal is really, really to have everyone consume less animal products, then shaming people is not the way to do it, because that's where you get your us-them divisions.
Yeah.
And this is what I think is cultier about veganism than people talking about it. Most of the vegans I know are chill. You would not know they were vegan because they're quiet about it.
Yeah, and you don't know about the quiet vegans. When we first met, you were a vegan, but I don't think I learned until 2 years later when we were like ordering pizza or something.
Yes, that's how most of the vegans I know are, but the extremists are always going to create a bad reputation for the rest of the population. So that, I think, is what non-vegans think is culty about veganism. They're constantly talking about it. But what I think is culty about veganism is, first of all, the transcendent promises that a lot of vegans, particularly on social media, make about the diet. Particularly vegan influencers will say things like, going vegan will make you like beautiful and it will help you overcome your eating disorder. It will like cure your digestive problems. It will cure the environment.
Yeah, like this idea that just changing your diet is going to solve all of your problems. That's like telling someone that they're going to reach euphoria by joining your club. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I first went vegan because of vegan YouTubers. They were eating abundantly. They had these like beautiful acai bowls and just looked happy. And I was like, I want to be that. I want to be happy like that.
I thought that I watched like one documentary, like Cowspiracy, and I tried to go vegan for like a week, and it was like, oh my God, it's going to fix all my problems because I have a really bad memory. So I was like, if I stop eating meat, I'm going to have an amazing memory. But it's like, that's not how that works.
It's not how that works. It's not singularly going to cure climate change, etc. And what's funny about the vegan influencers that originally like inspired me to go vegan 5 or 6 years ago was that well, first of all, of course, they didn't create a realistic portrait of veganism. Shocker, social media is a lie. But also, like, a lot of them are not vegan anymore. And there's a lot of shame surrounding that. I think, like, the lifestyle they were portraying and that they were following was not sustainable. But also, like, when they decided to introduce more animal products, and I went vegetarian in the pandemic. My boyfriend and I split the difference in the pandemic. Life was hard.
Yeah.
Frankly, my bandwidth is limited. I think I do more things that are good for the environment now than I did 5 years ago when I was more vegan. It's all about balance.
It really is. It's almost better to do something in moderation than not to do it at all. And I feel like it took me trying to go vegan a couple times to realize that I don't need to stop eating meat and dairy entirely. I just need to reduce my amounts.
Full on. I mean, think of if 80% of the world were 50% vegan. That would be so much better than 1% of the world being 100% vegan.
Yeah.
You know, like being 100% perfectly vegan, which, by the way, people who claim to be perfectly vegan are probably shopping on Amazon, buying fast fashion. Like, nobody is perfect. But regardless, like, being 100% flawlessly vegan, if that's even possible, is not accessible for most people, sustainable for most people. It doesn't always fit culturally with every family, like, especially in pandemic life where things were already so challenging and inaccessible.
So up next, we have a very special guest, Lauren Toyota. She has a food blog and a food Instagram. Hot for Food, and oh my God, look it up right now. It is so delicious. It makes me crave vegan food, and I'm not a vegan.
She was one of the vegan influencers that I followed back in the day, almost like my guilty pleasure vegan influencer, because everyone else was like a skinny Australian blonde, like eating nothing but pitaya.
Amanda, are you okay?
No,
I feel like your past is traumatizing.
Yes, you are correct. Yes, Cult of Blondes, but and she and Lauren was making like vegan burgers and fries and mac and cheese, and I was like, damn. If you know anything about me, it is that I am not a domestic goddess. I do not like to cook.
Yeah, you literally got groceries the other day and immediately went out to dinner with me.
Yeah, exactly. It's because I don't like to cook and I don't like to eat healthy, which is why I'm so glad that I got to discover Daily Harvest, which is this ready-made plant-based meal delivery service offering smoothies, harvest bowls, and more. And I'm so excited to tell you listeners about it.
Yeah, I mean, as a comedian, for me, it's so hard to eat healthy. I'm always eating fries and bar food, and I don't have time to cook. But with Daily Harvest, I can get home, pop a grain bowl in the microwave, or even pan fry it, highly recommend, and get all the veggies I need. The orders are flexible to be weekly or monthly, and you can even pause them whenever you want. And since the food comes frozen, if you do choose to pause or push, it won't go bad, and you can have it when you're ready.
I have tried a good amount of meal delivery services in the past, and I can genuinely say I am going to stick to this one. I just really like it. I had the cauliflower pesto bowl the other night when I was starving, but not in the mood to cook, typical, and was so impressed by how delicious and flavorful it was. And I also love that all their packaging is recyclable and compostable.
Yes, me too. That's always something that I feel guilty about with food delivery services. I feel like convenience always has a trade-off, but not with Daily Harvest. Daily Harvest makes it easy to feel good about what I'm doing for myself and the planet.
So true. Go to dailyharvest.com/cult to get up to $40 off your first box. That is a good deal. That's dailyharvest.com/cult for up to $40 off your first box.
That's dailyharvest.com/cult. For our listeners who don't know who you are, could you start by introducing yourself and your work to our listeners?
Yeah, I'm Lauren Toyota. I am the owner or creator of a blog called Hot for Food. I started doing it in 2015, kind of like on YouTube. So I started my YouTube channel then, and that's kind of where things sort of grew and took off, leading to doing cookbooks. So I have 2 cookbooks now. I call myself an online content creator, but you're probably going to call me a vegan influencer.
Yeah, we actually were talking with someone in the kitchen of all places. Yeah. And they were like, "Oh, who are you interviewing today?" I was like, "A vegan influencer." I do have to confess I'm not a vegan.
Okay. That's fine.
But I watched like Cowspiracy, obviously, and was like, "I'm never having meat again." And I went vegan for like 7 days in Charlottesville, Virginia, of all places, though. So not a lot of access to like alternative foods. Yeah. So it was so hard. But Instagram accounts like yours or like cookbooks like yours, like help you slowly get yourself into vegan spaces or even just eat less meat because you're still having like delicious meals.
Yeah, that was like my MO from the beginning. Like, because vegan food can appear so bland and gross and unappealing, it can. And especially when I went vegan in 2009-10, it was like, ew, like you have to eat raw. Like the perception was you had to eat a raw diet, actually, because that's kind of how I started. And I was like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to eat like this. And I was getting bored. So it was like, I need to make this stuff look good, be appealing. And that is where that comparison comes from. Like, we're making it look meaty. And you can make the comparison to meat. Like, I think one of the questions you get asked a lot online, or you kind of get bombarded with by the haters, is like, well, why do you have to call it vegan steak or vegan, or not even vegan, like chicken? It's like, well, it is chicken. It's just made from plants. But it's, as long as if you are mentally prepared to eat a certain thing and it does end up tasting like what you remember, then you're more. It's more appealing.
Yeah. So you mentioned you went vegan in 2009, 2010. Can you talk to us a little bit about how and why you first became vegan, and what was your impression of veganism then, and how has it changed over the years?
Well, I was very reluctant to go vegan or say I was vegan kind of publicly. And like the main reason I didn't fully go vegan ever, and I was always a vegetarian, is because it was the social aspect. Totally. Like being annoying at the dinner table or going to dinner and like all that stuff. That was like the reason why I wouldn't do it.
I was the annoying person and I still am. And it's not like to shame people. It's just like because I'm like so jealous. I think I'm like, how do you do it? What is your motivation?
Vegans do trigger meat eaters just by their very presence.
Yeah. And I literally think it's because it's like vegaphobia. It's internalized because I want to be a vegan. It's like people who are homophobic have like internalized homophobia because they might be gay.
You're 100% right. And there's also, we know meat is cruel. Like there's no justifying it.
Right.
It's just more of a compartmentalization, right? But I was like a real foodie and I wanted to try everything. Like I wanted to try all the food and like explore.
Yeah.
And I thought if I go vegan, that's really going to limit me. And that was the time, 2009, 2010. I mean, that's still pretty modern vegan. There are vegans they've been vegan for 20 years and they had nothing. You know, they had like lentil loaf, real, and that is it, and tofu. That's how Hot for Food was born, you know, like trying these things, but realizing, okay, a lot of these recipes are bland. They're not impressive. How can we make them more impressive? How can I make them more impressive? And really, it was just trying to cater to my own taste, cater to those memories of comfort food. I liked cheese. I love all these things. They're delicious. I'm not saying these things aren't delicious.
Cheese, that's cheese. It's cheese for me.
It's cheese, but it's like, it was like killing me. Like, it was making me so sick. I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
Like, so in 2009, 2010, there was no good cheese on the market. Even the cheeses on the market had casein in them, so they weren't completely dairy-free. They were made with soy, and then they had the protein from the milk to make them still milky tasting.
Yeah.
So you don't see that anymore. You see completely vegan products. When I go to the grocery store, it's like labeled. It's like bigger than the non-dairy milk and yogurt section is almost bigger than the regular milk and yogurt section
and
at
Sprouts
Whole Foods.
for sure.
At Sprouts and Whole Foods, even Ralph's, like even just the big box stores like Ralph's and Vons, they have all the products, and and it's incredible. There's cashew cheeses, there are coconut cheeses, like everything has become so innovative. It's so exciting, especially as someone who's kind of grown over a decade in this movement or whatever. I know there's still the mental thing, the cognitive dissonance, that whole thing, that's a whole mental exercise. But in terms of like the food, what's available when you're privileged and you live in a city like LA or like most major cities, it's so doable. And you don't have to load your fridge full of these products.
Yeah.
Like the basics are still, and I'm also trying to, that's the thing, I also try to show in my books, like Vegan Comfort Classics was all vegetable based, and it was like how to transform these vegetables into really delicious things. Usually you can deep fry them. It's like anything deep fried.
Air fryer has also like changed the game.
I mean, I didn't even have an air fryer till like, I don't know, 2 years ago.
I got one in the middle of the pandemic because it was a dark time.
Well, the most delicious flavors are vegan anyway. It's like oil, fucking garlic,
shallot,
onion. Yes, alcohol.
Yeah,
alcohol is a good addition.
Alcohol is vegan. That's a good point, Amanda.
Some beers aren't, but
some beers and wine aren't.
How did you find your way into the cult of vegan influencers, and how do you think social media has contributed to the idea that vegans are in a cult?
Yeah, and I like that now I'm on this podcast. Sounds like a cult, and you're using the word cult because that was kind of what people would say that, oh, veganism seems like a cult, and I thought that too, right? Because I thought if I say I'm vegan publicly, and at this time in my life, I was actually a public figure in Canada. So I had social media and I was like, do I come out and say, do I come out and say I'm vegan? It was like, that was scary because of the cultiness of it. And there was these kind of old school crunchy vegans that I wanted to distance myself from 100%. Also the activist, hardcore
PETA, letting rats out of the labs.
Oh, yeah.
The protesters. I also wanted to distance myself from that. And I think it's that at the same time, a lot of people were feeling that way. This divisiveness in the vegan community has always existed, but social media has really carved out a space to be talking just about like good food, art, creativity, photography, video, and kind of use that as the activism. Social media allowed us to use that as activism, where traditionally it was like you had to be out on the street with a sign, or throwing paint on fur coats and this type of thing, and that was the image everyone had of a vegan,
which sounds fun, but
but it's so fringy and it feels really foreign and really extreme to people. Social media allowed veganism to feel more relatable and more aspirational.
And this was all in my vision. It was like when I came up with the name Haunt for Food, it didn't have the word vegan in it purposefully. And it was about food, and it kind of had like a sexiness to it, I thought, and I wanted to show that like, I'm a cool vegan. Like, that was just what I said. It's like, I'm not a crazy person. I'm not like screaming at you. I just live my life the way everyone else does. I just happen to eat plants and make really good recipes. And there was other people doing it who were bigger, like the early stage of influencers, like, the only person I can really think of was this girl, Madden. Her account was Nom Yourself.
Oh, okay.
She was kind of like big and she was posting photos of her food. I tapped into this little bit of community I saw, like I said, because everyone was foodies and they started seeing the food photos. So it was about timing for sure. I got in at the early stage, I guess. And I did have an aspiration, like, I want a big account and I want to show people how to do this the right way. Like,
goals.
Look at you achieving
she
your
has
dreams.
goals.
I know. So it was an intention.
Women
for
in
sure.
tech.
Right? But I knew nothing. I was just like fiddling around. I was just fiddling around, which was this fun of it at the beginning, right? Because you're just into something, you're sharing it. There was no pressure.
It's funny that you mentioned you were like afraid to come out as vegan
Yeah.
because there are like those, and I'll say it, there are those annoying people who like don't stop mentioning it. But the funny thing is, like, when I went vegan for a week, I literally could not stop talking about it.
It's true.
It's a big life change when you go vegan.
It's a big life change. It's a very spiritual change. And this maybe comes back to the cultiness of it.
Yeah.
Because I do explain it this way in a lot of interviews, that it's a mind, body, spirit transformation. It is undoubtedly going to change your life. I like to say, start with the food. Your body resonates differently if you're feeding it different food. Truthfully, if you're not putting cruelty into your body, like, how do you think your cells are going to react?
Yeah.
So, like, that starts teetering into, like, weird woo-woo culty territory. But, like, I stand by it because I've felt it, and people who change their life and go this way, they feel it too, and everyone describes it this way.
Totally. Especially when you are going through such a profound change. Like, the country still is not really set up for vegans. Like, it still is hard to be vegan, you know? And you kind of like have to go through almost a spiritual change, or else you wouldn't stick with it.
Yes.
You would give up.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people do. They say, oh, I did it for 3 months and I gave up. You know, you hadn't hit, there wasn't that threshold where like it all started clicking, and everyone's on their own journey. Like, anytime someone says, I quit after 3 months, like, I don't berate them or say, oh, you should have done this or whatever. Because I feel like once it's sort of entered your psyche, it's bound to, just like anything, it's bound to show up in different ways.
Yeah,
for sure.
And speak to you and continue to speak to you until, you know, you make more change.
Yeah. I also feel like the way you said, like, I quit veganism, I feel like it's also seen as like people try to go vegan, they quit veganism, but you're actually quitting meat. So it's almost like the opposite addiction. And it's like, how long were you able to like last without meat, and then like having to adjust to it that way? You know what I mean?
You know, there's different ways of looking at it, because the moral, ethical aspect of veganism, like, it's a lifestyle change because you now understand the process of making these foods that were basically brainwashed into eating from childhood. That's the spiritual mind, psyche aspect. And so if it's not about that, then it's kind of a fad. It's kind of a diet. Maybe it's stomach issues, like, mine was a lot of stomach issues, but I still always, from a very young age, had I don't like eating animals. Like, eating animals is weird to me from being a kid.
Me too,
I loved
from when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
It just seemed wrong.
But you can see how society you get completely wrapped up in just, oh, it's easier to just, because society is set up for you to do that.
Totally.
And tells you to do that, and says it's healthier, and says you need milk for calcium and strong bones. Like, this friggin' propaganda is like everywhere.
It is such propaganda.
And so it's like anything, peeling back these veils and these layers until you see the truth.
Yeah.
And that takes effort.
So there's people who aren't vegan that often think vegans are culty, but not necessarily for the reasons that vegans think vegans are culty. What do you think are the most common stereotypes that outsiders tend to believe about the cult of veganism? And how do those tropes compare and contrast with what you personally believe are the cultiest things about veganism?
I feel like I'm taking an exam with that
I know.
question.
Sorry, I know. That was like a math problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the main misconception is that it's somehow less than, that it's somehow not satisfying, that you're depriving yourself of things, that you live a less than joyous life with food. And it's actually the opposite. It's such the opposite. Like, I added so many more interesting things to my diet going vegan because I started branching out and thinking differently. Because we really are told, this food pyramid, and it's so limiting, actually, when you look at what we're told to eat. We ignore half the produce section when we walk into a store because we're sort of habitually just buying like the things we're used to. But when you go vegan, your mind expands and you start exploring different ingredients and experimenting. When it's fun, like, it really is fun. It's not like a deprivation or like a restrictive thing. But that's the misconception, that it is that. Another misconception is that if you're going to be vegan, then you're a militant vegan. It's like all or nothing.
And I don't call myself vegan anymore because I genuinely recognize the difference between what I'm doing now and what I'm doing then. And this is not to say that I won't be vegan ever again. It's just like life circumstances have led me to a place where I'm like, I ate a croissant yesterday. Like, so shoot me.
Croissants are so good.
Yeah.
The hardcore vegans, again, because it's a cult, like you're saying, like, it's this purist perfection thing, and that's got to go.
Yeah.
That's not helping the movement. That's not helping people save more animals. So I'm on the side of, like, I just don't care. Like, do what you want. Don't call yourself vegan, call yourself a vegan. But even as someone who calls themselves vegan, my whole career as this vegan influencer, content creator, there has always been moments where if I'm with other vegans, I get nervous because, well, what do they believe? Do they think honey's bad? Do they think, I don't eat honey for the record, but
I was about to ask.
Yeah.
It's like I'm wearing secondhand leather shoes.
Yeah.
Am I not vegan in their eyes?
And there's all these rules.
I always forget about
like,
objects.
what makes, like everything, right? Yeah. So it's like, what makes you vegan? What doesn't? And like that stuff's gotta go. Like people just need to let that go. So it exists 100%. There's content to justify that movement and that perspective of being vegan. I've just been trying to make it not that my whole time on the internet, trying to just make it approachable, trying to make people want to come over to this side,
and
but
honestly,
at their own pace.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like you succeeded as one of a big name in this space. Just the fact that people are now, there's so many people I've met in LA that don't talk about it that way. And I feel like that started with people like you on the internet, making it approachable.
Okay, this leads me to our next question, because when I went vegan, and I went very militantly at first, and I think in the beginning, oftentimes people do that because you're radicalizing yourself as a way to build passion.
Yes.
Me for 7 days.
Yeah. But what I instantly appreciate about you is that you were very different from those super aspirational, super healthy acai bowl type of vegan influencers, and we've been treating
freely.
Freely. That, and we've been saying that influencer is a little bit of a dirty word, or we've been dancing around it as this dirty word. But when I think of vegan influencers, I in large part think about those people that I followed 5-6 years ago who put forth this image that veganism was this miracle that could cure your life and make you beautiful and perfect.
It's so toxic. This is the YouTube community of vegans.
So exactly. And I have even the extreme people to thank for my vegan education, because that's what led me to it. But what do you think of that community of vegan influencers? And do you think that the people who aren't vegan anymore, did the cultiness of it cause veganism to be unsustainable for them?
That's a really good question. Because it feels yes, the pressure, especially when you put yourself online and you've got hundreds of thousands, millions of people chiming in on what you're eating, how you look, blah, blah, blah. Where personally, and you're trying to uphold this image. I said it was healthy, but now I feel like shit. Who knows why? You're short in some vitamin. It doesn't matter, right? Oh God, it's definitely weird to see people change who have been this militant vegan, believing in the morals and the ethics, understanding the whole thing, and then going back. That doesn't really make sense to me. Of course, you can never say never, but I just don't feel knowing what I know. Yeah. I cannot.
Were they faking it for the views? What was that?
That is very a bizarre phenomenon. I don't really get it. And I think it can cause a lot of damage to the movement. It confuses people, and when vegans hear of other famous people going vegan, we want to they're in. We bring them in. You see the articles. Oh, Miley Cyrus is vegan, and every day there's all some celebrity headline about them going vegan or wearing vegan shoes or this and that. We want to reel them in and capture them and own them. And it's sure, everyone can live their life and make their own decision. That's fine. I just don't personally understand how you can understand the argument for veganism fully in your cells, I was saying, spiritually, and then change. It's all just so exhausting. Why can't we just focus on the exciting, tasty parts of this life? That's
what's inspiring to people. Yeah. That's what's inspiring.
That being said, Freely has made a lot of people go vegan. So, great. It worked. It's like anything. You see a fur protest, that might make you go vegan. Everyone has their avenue. But I do feel what I'm doing and what many people similarly to me are doing, and you see that community now more prominently, that's more influential and more appealing nowadays. I think
so.
Maybe in the earlier days of the internet, the sort of toxicity of that was more appealing to people, the drama and everything.
Yeah.
But I think we've kind of moved away from that. I
hope so.
I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube to really see what's going on in the nitty-gritty. Yeah.
What do you think it would take for veganism to be 100% live your life level cult and not culty in a bad way?
What would it take?
Tough question.
Is that even I don't know that it's possible, because like you said, it's powered by social media and so many different people and their opinions, and everyone's allowed to do that. as a consumer or a person consuming the influencers content, you know, it's not one size fits all, and I just want people to be more discerning. I think sometimes people just fall into stuff way too easily and put people like me on a pedestal or something and like think we know everything. And I can see where it goes off. Like people do develop orthorexia and eating disorders because of veganism, and there are like these negative offshoots. And I guess, you know, it can't really be helped because nobody's monitoring these friggin' airwaves, these friggin' feeds. But you're right, like we do need the extreme people because, like I said, there's just different avenues to the entry points to making these changes in your life.
Okay, so we were talking a little bit about the hype surrounding vegan celebrities before. So now we're going to play a quick game.
Okay.
It's called Which Cult-Followed Figure is Not a Vegan?
Not a vegan. Okay.
And really going to test your skills.
We have 4 rounds, okay? So we're going to read you 3 names, and you have to guess which cult-followed figure is not a vegan.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Round 1. Billie Eilish, Lizzo, or Miley Cyrus?
Miley.
Ding, ding, ding.
She went back.
Yeah.
She turned her back.
Yeah. I know Lizzo is a vegan because I follow her on TikTok and she posts like the best food videos.
She posts good food.
Round 2, Pamela Anderson, Gwyneth Paltrow, or Alicia Silverstone?
Paltrow. She
Correct.
ain't vegan.
She's not?
No, she's a goopy fucking weirdo.
She's
okay,
like,
she's
gotta
a capitalist.
Put a runny egg on every recipe type person.
Of course.
Yeah, although Alicia Silverstone is bad too. She's like anti-vax and says that veganism can make you like not have a miscarriage.
Ooh, and she did that weird thing where she like regurgitated her food into her kid's mouth or something.
Ew. Oh God, love Clueless though. Iconic film. Next round. Which cult-followed figure is not a vegan? Is it Sting, Morrissey, or Stevie Wonder?
Ooh, I'm gonna say Stevie Wonder is not vegan.
It's actually Sting.
Damn, that was hard.
But here's what's interesting is that
I actually had no idea.
he does eat meat, but not a lot of it. Not a lot of dairy, and he has his own farm where he like grows his own food and cultivates his own eggs. And
good for Sting.
And our last round, which cult-followed figure is not a vegan? Is it Colin Kaepernick, Bill Clinton, or Ricky Gervais?
Ricky's vegan. Bill Clinton's vegan, or he was. Oh, Colin Kaepernick. Oh God. I'm gonna go with Colin Kaepernick is not a vegan.
That was a trick question. They're all vegan.
Oh, they're all vegan. Because I was like, yeah, Colin Kaepernick, because he's the kneeling. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm totally ignorant to that news. Okay.
Yeah.
He's the kneeling guy. So I was like, yeah, he probably could be vegan.
Yeah.
I actually had no idea he was vegan, but that totally makes sense.
Yeah, he must
Good
be
guy
new.
all around.
Maybe he's newly vegan, like fairly new. We don't know.
Apparently for 6 years he's been vegan.
Good for him.
Thank you so much for talking about the cult of veganism with us and for playing our game. If folks want to
bringing us your book.
Yes,
oh my God,
I hope you love
so
it.
Excited. I'm sure I'll be obsessed. I make your mac and cheese like weekly.
There's like new mac and cheese in there, like faster 1 pot and then like 5 level up.
Stop.
Oh,
so you'll be
snap.
living-
I have most like vegan staples from that 1 week. So
yeah, there's somewhere in the back of your cupboard your nutritional needs. You're like, oh,
Exactly. If someone wants to be influenced by you, where can they find you?
Well, follow my Instagram at Hot for Food. I also have a personal Instagram at Lauren Toyota, where I've now revealed my pregnancy.
Yes, congratulations.
I know, thank you.
I can't believe you still have like 3 more months to go.
I know. These will be the longest months. Hotforfoodblog.com, of course, is where all the free recipes are. And then I have 2 books you can find at any bookstore, book place where you buy books. And YouTube. I'm not really, I'm on YouTube, but I haven't been actively posting. But there's lots of fun.
Oh, there's so many videos on there,
There's
though.
so many videos. So like,
I love watching YouTube food videos.
Yeah. So if you haven't found me yet, go look because there's just lots of stuff. And I really show how to make the food and like walk you through it. So it's helpful, educational stuff.
Isa, out of the 3 cult categories, live your life, watch your back, or get the fuck out. What do you think about the cult of veganism?
I think it is a live your life.
Mm?
Yeah.
I'm afraid of calling anything a live your life anymore because of our cheerleading episode.
I think it's a live your life because you should always be feeding yourself to the point where you feel good. And if you're eating and you feel good, then live your life. Be a vegan. But, you know, I don't even think I need to be telling people to watch their back when it comes to the food that they eat. That's why I think it's a live your life.
Okay.
Because you should always be eating in a way that makes you feel good. Does that make sense?
It does. And I completely respect that, especially when we're talking about something touchy like food. You just want to say live your life. If I hadn't been a member of this cult for quite a while, I'd probably be like...
Tables turned.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. I'd probably be like, you know what? Veganism's aims are absolutely pure. If everyone in the world were mostly vegan, that really, really would benefit the planet, the animals, etc. However, because there are some extremists, particularly on social media, on YouTube, who want to take advantage of others who are looking to improve their lives in the way that I was, then it's a bit of a watch your back because it starts to get culty.
Yeah, like if you're starving, you're more likely to be convinced by a cult leader to join a cult. So like when I say live your life, I'm like, live your life not hungry.
Yeah, live your life not hungry. Right. And I was hungry sometimes because I had the voices of those vegan influencers in my head being like, you can't have that piece of toast because there is a speck of whey in it.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
And just so sad.
I know. If you're like in a room all by yourself eating vegan food with no one's voices in your head, live your life.
Exactly.
But if you start to sense that rhetoric informing your everyday decisions about something as important as how you're fueling your body, that's kind of a watch your back.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Well, that's our show. Thanks so much for listening.
We'll be back with a new cult next week.
But in the meantime,
stay culty.
But not too culty. Sounds Like a Cult is created, hosted, and produced by Amanda Montel and Isa Medina. Kate Elizabeth is our editor.
Our podcast studio is All Things Comedy, and our theme music is by Casey Kolb. Thank you to our intern/production assistant, Noemi Griffin. Subscribe to Sounds Like a Cult wherever you get your podcasts, so you never miss an episode.
And if you like our show, feel free to give us a rating and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/soundslikeacult.